So here we are, Gary. It's the Ben and Gary Show. We know dentistry, and we're looking always forward to answering your questions. And this was one that I think that came to us a little while ago that we're just sort of getting around to answering. And an individual asked about they have this space between their molar teeth that it's like they've gotten the filling done, and the reason why they're getting the filling done is to close that space, and then doggone it, some time goes by, and it opens back up again, and it's like it's weird, and I have to say this is a kind of actually a subject that's probably the bane of our existence here.
Yes,
and we've talked about it when it comes to implants. We've touched upon it with that, where an implant is a stationary object that will not move. If you try to move it orthodontically, it will never move. Put braces on it, nothing's going to happen. It's going to stay stationary. But the teeth around are dynamic.
Yes.
And they can move.
Doggone
it. And you're like, how can that be such a big problem? You guys are just a bunch of dentists who are concerned about these little minutia that stay in your world. But the reality is that after every time you eat a meal and you have something caught there all the time, imagine if you don't clear it out, like what's going to happen.
Right.
In my opinion, we can get tooth decay.
Right.
Causes the gum problem.
Right.
And it's just sort of a constant irritant.
Oh yeah. So it's you would think that we're very neurotic people when you think about how fastidious we are about contacts between adjacent teeth fitting next to the adjacent teeth.
You want to have it so the floss has some resistance. It doesn't just pass through. You also don't want it, of course, where it's so tight you can't get it in there.
Right. But it's very, very important, and so that's why whenever we do crowns and do fillings, we always make sure that there's contact between the adjacent tooth. And it does a couple things. It makes sure that
gonna get that out
when you chew, that the food is directed away from the contact area. Because as Ben said, if you do trap food, over time you're going to have decay starting, or you'll have some gum disease starting. And those are never good things. And
the space will get bigger if you get gum disease. You can get bone loss, which if it's in between the teeth, that space where the normal contact was, the gum tissue won't fill, and guess what? The space gets bigger, and it's just kind of self-fulfilling prophecy on every time that they eat their food. But it actually today was actually an interesting situation that I think that this was very poignant. Probably the reason why we decided to talk about it today is that perhaps, well, maybe I back up for a second before I even do that here. Maybe there's we probably need to talk about like why does it open up in the first place? What scenarios causes it? We already talked about one with the dental implant. It seems like almost invariably you put a dental implant in space in a space when there are other adjacent teeth around it, and then I don't know, a year, 2 years from there, you see a little gap develop.
Right.
The implant didn't move. Mm-hmm. The teeth in front of them were dynamic and they moved forward.
Right.
Teeth can crowd, which then allows for them to be able to drift forward, and if they crowd in the front, other boxcars, so to speak, on a train, kind of follow right behind, and they leave the implant from, behind. Most of the time, I guess when you don't have something like that, then you have teeth that are all dynamic, and they all kind of crowd forward at the same time. They don't leave any ones, behind.
Right.
Other times, I guess somebody can break something. They can, end up with an open contact. Mm-hmm. Can't think of anything else off the hand.
What I've noticed within my patient base is sometimes they'll have issues as far as clenching or grinding, and that will cause the teeth to separate. You go back in, you reestablish the contact, and
hopefully it's easy.
The same thing happens.
Yeah.
And boy, I'll tell you what, that can get frustrating.
Yeah. So I have back to this. I guess this patient that I had, which was interesting. That I'm the third dentist who have done these crowns.
Yeah.
And I was like, for sure, there was a great contact there between these two molar crowns.
Right.
And just today, she came in and said, I think it's opened up again. And it's just like, your head just goes down, and you're like, you just can't get around this, and from this happening. But one of the things that I hadn't seen and noticed before was that she had an impacted wisdom tooth.
Oh.
Still at 81 years old, she had an impacted wisdom tooth. And that wisdom tooth is right where the tips of the roots are on the tooth that drifts backwards.
Right.
And that tooth actually has some curved roots on them, such that they're curved in sort of the direction in which this tooth wants to kind of drift backwards.
The wisdom tooth is...
The wisdom tooth, I think, is pushing and has left it to be a little bit unstable. And so, contacts are something that can be a troublesome thing here. But one of the things we hadn't also talked about are like, did you always get your wisdom teeth out?
Yeah.
And not always do you get them out, even if they are impacted. A lot of times we decide to just leave them. But in this case, it's actually a sort of sandwiched up against a tooth that's actually functioning well, and I think has led to this contact continue to open. And I guess one of the other ways we can deal with this, though, is to simply redo the two crowns but join them together.
Yeah, splint them.
And we call them splinting them together and make two crowns that are just joined together. That way, for sure, the contact's not going to open. But just like anything else, there's a give and a take.
Right.
The give on this one is that once you close the contact, how do you clean in between if they're really, really tight together?
Well, hopefully there's enough space down towards the gum line. You can
Hope so, but
right.
it's not like a perfect bullet that creates, or a magic bullet, I should say, that just solves all the problems without having any downside.
Right.
But yeah, that was it's definitely frustrating when you feel like you've said it correctly, and then very shortly after that, it just changes. And there's no really easy way to be able to add contact to two crowns that are brand new. There's no filling material that's going to stick. You can't set it up to be able to just close it without having to redo the crowns, at least one of them. In this case, we might consider splinting them together if that wisdom tooth is something that we can't remove. At 81 years old, I'm not quite sure if that's a good thing to actually go to go chase after one of those, just because once you have say a fully formed tooth, it's pretty long and it's already embedded up in your jawbone there pretty far, and to go get it out, there's complications that are associated with that we may not want to stir that up, and it just might mean to restoratively change the two crowns.
Right.
It might be the easy way, and often that's what we end up doing with dental implants is that if it's a tooth that's in front, sometimes we just do another filling, a filling. Sometimes we end up redoing the implant crown, or add on to that one. So there are definitely ways, but I can tell you they're all frustrating, and it does require time. If you really are interested about maintaining your teeth in optimal dental health, these are just some of the things that can come up, and they're frustrating to us, and I'm sure they're frustrating to you, but at the end of the day, we're the kind of dentists that we want to make sure that everything is as perfect as we can get them, and get you, and really your health is what we're concerned about, and keeping your teeth for the rest of your life is as easily and maintainable as possible.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe this contact conversation is going to continue on. We haven't found the magic, to be able to make that not happen. But we're certainly aware of it. It's part of your dental health that we want to have you in an ideal scenario, so that. But hopefully, we're going to come up with something that'll solve it and solve it well and put it to rest. But I have a feeling it's going to be with us for quite a while. We're the Ben and Gary Show, answering those questions that you have. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.